Welcome back to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Tiffany Upchurch.
Thank you so much for your time today and educating us on your story as a peripartum cardiomyopathy survivor. And, you know, it's interesting because I'm so glad you're giving your time today and educating, because we're putting the pieces together. If each woman talks about their story, eventually each woman might be able to put this whole piece together. So the question I usually always like to start first is, how old were you when you were first ever diagnosed peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM?
Sure. And thank you for having me today. I appreciate you letting me do this.
Absolutely.
So I was 36 when I was diagnosed.
So you were 36, and at what point in your pregnancy where you're just not feeling well, you felt like there was a complication? Did your doctor make you aware of it before you were feeling this, of the symptoms? And what were those symptoms?
Okay. So honestly, I really didn't feel well because I had hypertension already. So I guess it kind of went unnoticed. We just knew that I had chronic hypertension. And I was someone that was rare that did not swell. I did not swell. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, it was very interesting. I pretty much had to have the flash pulmonary edema postpartum. And then that's where it all started leading to finding the diagnosis.
Okay. And who was it that was able to diagnose you? And at what point in your pregnancy did you start feeling like this is not right? Like what I'm feeling is just not right. At what, like how many weeks pregnant you think you were?
Well, I didn't catch it during pregnancy. I caught it postpartum. I was 2.5 months
That's right.
postpartum.
Okay. So who was it that actually diagnosed you? Was it your gynecologist, your baby doctor?
I actually went to the local walk-in clinic when I had that flash pulmonary edema, and she talked to her overseer doctor, and that's when they thought that's what had happened, and they got me right into a cardiologist.
And what city and state was this, or what hospital
Um,
that caught your?
the cardiologist is in Cape Toronto, Missouri.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you're in Missouri right now?
Yes,
Okay. So it was the cardiologist that obviously caught it because your life was already at a threat.
it was very much at a threat. Yes.
And did you go back when you learned about peripartum cardiomyopathy? What were your symptoms, or what happened that put your life at such a threat?
The biggest symptom that I had was I could not breathe when I laid down. It felt like a weight on my chest. And that was the biggest symptom. And then going upstairs, I would get up them and feel like I was going to black out.
Yes, I remember that feeling well.
Yeah.
At when you were, 2 months out, I coded 3 months out. So peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, always peaks after, delivery. Were you delivering by C-section or vaginally? How did you have your birth?
I had it vaginally, but I did have, an epidural, and I was struggling then with my blood pressure quite a bit.
Okay. And what if at that point when you were struggling, what were the things that you were struggling with the baby? Breastfeeding? Were you able to breastfeed?
That was very hard because I have 7 children, and he was my heart baby was my 7th child, and I tried so hard to nurse. And this time I had succeeded. He had never had a bottle yet, and so at the time I didn't have a support group. I didn't know that there are medications you could still keep nursing. So I was told that I would have to stop nursing the night I went home, and that was really, really hard for me and for the baby because he
Sure.
refused the bottle and he lost weight. It was a bad time.
Yeah, I understand. And breastfeeding is always like a really sensitive subject. And I bring it up because, you know, even I myself, I mean, I was in a coma, but um, yeah, it's when that's taken away from you. It does, but it doesn't still break the bond.
Right.
As long as they get those antibodies, but um, it is kind of, definitely a hardship taken from this disease of what happens with a mother and a baby.
Mhm.
Now, because you've had 7 babies, you were an experienced pregnant mom as opposed to somebody that's only given birth once. What made this pregnancy different? And it really does show that, you know, I mean, you don't know if you were PPCM prior. Do you felt
Mhm.
like within the 7 pregnancies that you could have been and you just didn't know because you weren't diagnosed?
Right.
Or like, how was this pregnancy so different from your 6 other pregnancies?
Well, to be honest, I wonder now if I might have had it my 6th
Sure.
pregnancy,
Okay.
because I did have a lot of trouble then. Um, so we were surprisingly blessed with my 7th pregnancy. He really is a miracle child in many ways. But yeah.
Well, with, having the 7 different pregnancies was like you gave birth all vaginally, obviously, because I think
Yes.
once you C-section, you have to always C-section. Um, do you feel that this could have been prevented for you during pregnancy, where you could have
I
avoided
do. I
even your
really
last
feel
two,
that
the
if
seventh?
I or my oh, did I lose you? Okay.
No.
I really feel that if I had went to a cardiologist, it would have made a world of difference. And that is something I will forever encourage people to do now.
During pregnancy. And I
Mhm.
always say, because it's not just, you know, with gynecology, the belly button down, this is a pregnancy induced complication to a
Mhm.
very young, healthy girl. It's prior to pregnancy, you're very healthy, which is why you can have a full recovery. Um, Most definitely, and live a very long life if treated and diagnosed, and there's like a miracle. Like me. You wonder, how do you come back from death, times of death, but
Yeah.
it's it is definitely something. Our hearts are our main engine, and it should be applied within gynecology. So it's not just like, okay, the baby down here. It all comes into play,
Mhm.
which we're working on at the UCLA Women's Cardiology Center, collaborating studies and information in with gynecology at UCLA, with Dr. Carol Watson, who is my cardiologist. It's been a long road, but I think the more women that show up and say there could be a prevention, and what do you, as you know now, about the BNP test, the anti-pro BNP test, um, did you learn about the BNP after?
I actually still have never had that test. I guess my
Interesting.
cardiologist
What
has not ran that. I've
Wow.
only had the ECGs and the echoes, and then they do labs every 3 months to check my electrolytes and my sodiums and those kind of
Hmm.
things. So I've never had that checked.
Okay, so you don't know, what is your EF percent?
Last echo was about 6 months ago, and it was 52, 54,
That's good. Okay, so
somewhere
you're
in there.
so
Um,
you're you're basically fully recovered.
I'm striving for more, but yes, I am blessed to have what I have.
That is amazing. That is
Yeah.
really great. And with 7 babies, God bless you. And and you know, wherever we are in the world, it's definitely the awareness of PPCM is very informative, because here you've had 7 babies and never heard of it until your 7th.
Yeah,
That's needs to change. That's why
it
we're
does.
having this conversation. And is there anything that you think that you would like to add to, the young women that are, out there that are pregnant and trying to figure out what is going on? They're sending me home fine, and I know I'm not fine. Um, or the survivors that, have survived this disease. Is there anything that you would want to add with your experience, wounds of
Yeah.
wisdom?
hmm Just advocate for yourself. If you don't feel right, you know your body. And a lot of times you are kind of brushed off. I'm not trying to speak bad of doctors. I love them. They do a great job most of the time. But there are things like this that they're not aware of themselves, I feel. Um, so just listen to your body. And if you don't feel right, it, going up the stairs, you can't breathe, laying down, you can't breathe, swelling, get checked out by a cardiologist because they can do thorough testing. Um, and
Yeah,
there was one thing, sorry.
I was saying yes. Self advocacy. That's
Yes.
that's what um, every interview is the same. Like asking the same question, getting the same answer, because it's so common. And when a doctor says, "Oh, this is so rare," um, what are they basing it off of? Because we don't have a proper diagnosis.
hmm
So you can't even make a statistic on any of this
Right.
until the test is standard and diagnosis is standard, which
hmm
is what, if it's such a common correlation of self advocacy being the best advice, then that shows that there is a concern, to this real practical solution to a very serious problem,
Right.
which is knowing your NT-proBNP test when you're pregnant, and because that's your full panel, and your BNP is a simple B type blood test. And I'm not sure why your cardiologist hasn't provided you that, since it's the only test that we have available in America. There are other tests that are approved out of our country, but FDA will not, they have not gotten on the ball with it, but which is weird, unfortunately. But there needs to be a standard. So the fact that, like, if you're ever diagnosed as peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, it should be mandatory for you to know your BNP number at least once a year or every 6 months.
hmm
I mean, it's just as important, because it's our blood. It's what caused the disease, the blood.
hmm
It's an infection that causes the disease. And so our hearts are affected. Our hearts are not the cause of the disease. It's got the word cardiomyopathy, but our hearts are being infected and suffocated, either enlarged or weakened. And
Mhm.
so it's very clear that the collaboration of cardiology and gynecology is the answer to this. And we are currently working on this. And this pregnancy movement will have waves just for having these conversations about, everything that we've been talking about, how it
Mhm.
is so important to self-advocate. We do know our bodies. This is coming from a mom that had seven children. So with experience, I mean, there is a lot of truth here.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yep. So,
There was one thing I forgot to
mm,
bring up. You were asking me, what was different from the other pregnancies. Labor and delivery, I almost died. And even then, we didn't know. Um, they assumed it was that they had given me so many high doses of high blood pressure medication that once delivery happened, that it was just too much for my body. And they had to hurry up, like my blood pressure, the cuff wouldn't even read it over and over. The lights and stuff was going off. And the alarms, they hurried up and put a lot of fluid in me. So that's something that had never happened. So, but
well,
we
yeah.
still then didn't know.
And there was no flags in the birth team. I'm sure there was more than one person in that room.
They were low staff that day.
A little staff,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And not one of that little staff. What hospital was that?
Southeast Hospital.
In Missouri.
Mm-hmm. In Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Well, okay.
I'm not sure why they were low staffed, but there was
It's
another
not
delivery.
about it's not about being low staff. It's about it takes one person to be educated and trained on, or having the common sense or the intuition that there is a flag here, and that's where it comes into, like, this should be an ancient conversation because
Mm-hmm.
women have been giving birth since the beginning of time, but we're having it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they should have been on it. It's the lack of education and the lack of training regarding having the awareness of the prevention. And the reason is because there is no diagnosis unless you are given the NT-proBNP test. And that test is not educated, and women don't know to ask for it, and doctors don't give it. Now they
Well,
know
I
about
need to
it.
ask for it now, don't I? Because
You need to demand it
yeah,
and say, I want to know my number,
I
you
would I
know?
would like to know my number.
And to be honest with you, the fact that, I continued getting my BNP, the fluid disease, you could see when your numbers are elevated, they can catch things like cancer. Dementia is not preventable, but there are preventions that can maybe prolong it, maybe condition it. We don't know yet. We're learning all of this. But if you were to go and research, does the BNP test determine other blood diseases that turn into full-blown diseases? Early diagnosis saves lives with the prevention. And because I was getting the BNP test more frequently because of my medication, and my doctor knew, like, I was BNP, she noticed that it was high, but my heart was fine. So then they start looking into other things. And so I just had, some cancer that was scraped out, but it turns out that that's common because if you're PPCM, you have trauma. And we all have, like, these cancer cells in our body. And once trauma hits, they get exposed. And whether or not it happens this moment or within 2 to 3 years, however it sits dormant or whenever it peaks, you can see the elevation. Then what you would do is you would have it removed, or you just wouldn't know what's going on in your body without knowing that test number, and for the BNP, it's any number below 99. And for the full panel of the NT Pro, I believe it's 300 and below. So if you're elevated higher than that regarding the panel that you have for your B blood type, then you'll know a lot. Like you can, like I say it every time. I have one. It's been sitting on my refrigerator for a while because I don't want to poke him, but my son should know the BNP because he's a PPCM baby, and we're studies. 2022. It's got to happen sometime. So I guess it's us. We're depending. Our life is a documentation of. We're documenting our experience. And for you to have experienced such trauma during your delivery, because I said, I wondered, because you had so many babies, and I know that when you have a C-section, there is a higher correlation between C-section and vaginal. There's a way more, it peaks after. With fluid comes infection. I think that's why, and it peaks more. But with you having to push and having probably that fluid that you can't even see, crushing your heart, did they say that your heart was weakened or did it enlarge?
It was enlarged.
It was enlarged.
Yeah, it was enlarged. And then I had the left bundle branch block, and then I had a severe mitral valve leak. So
yeah, you're lucky to be here. Absolutely. And what are you taking? What are your medications that you're on?
Yeah, Carvedilol, Entresto, and then Eplerenone. I'm not sure if I say that right. It's really hard to say, but it is a diuretic. So
yeah, I'm on a diuretic and like a blood thinner. Recently my doctor added something, and wow, it lowered my blood pressure. I thought I was floating, and I had to lay down for literally 2 days. This was recently.
wow.
I felt like it was all up here, but I couldn't even lift my head up, and my blood pressure was really low. So I stopped taking it immediately, went back to my other medication, and I'm on 2 days now where I feel like normal again. But man, the slightest, literally the slightest change of medication can either like send your BP like really, really high or really, really low. And I'm sitting there, my thing wasn't charged, and I'm doing my blood pressure, and it was going up to 200, and I was like, ow, I had to rip it off. I was like, oh no, I did it again. And I was like, fine. But it's like, these are the scares that we have, now our lives are not normal because we have these type of fears about our heart stopping or what's our medication.
Yes, that happened to me. We switched around a diuretic, and it caused my potassium to bottom out. And now that I'm in our group that we're in, I've seen that's happened a lot. So I had to be put on potassium, and that's when I had went to recovery. Then my EF dropped when that happened, and my ECGs, they had looked better too, but now they're back to looking like they were almost when diagnosed too. So it was very frustrating that happened. But
yeah, absolutely.
Just one of the things, like you're saying, a medication, just a little tweak.
A little bit can like literally just like, I couldn't move for like 2 days. And then like, as soon as I like popped out of my fog or whatever it was, I like cleaned for like 12 hours because I was like, the hell's and then I ended up, just keeping the body moving, just keeping everything going. Cause it was like, almost like you need that energy, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my major symptoms now is the anxiety attacks. That I never really understood anxiety until having this. And now that is something I struggle with almost daily. If I feel
Yeah.
flutter or, just my
I
heart's racing.
I have I had that really bad as well. But I do believe in mental health. I do believe in the medication. I got my master's at the University of Pennsylvania in social work. I was a triage specialist. I know what it takes for medication. And I also know that it's like a diabetic taking insulin. And I think the worst part is if you don't believe in it, but you're aware that you have anxiety. I mean, the medication that we have today is like amazing. So for an entire year, I was having like these night terrors, and right after my heart procedure, 4 months later, my mom passed away, who's my everything. So
Wow.
I was really having a hard time coping and grieving, even though I had all this knowledge and all this, like, I knew how to meet myself at its level, but I also knew chemically, I can't chemically create and condition my dopamine and my serotonin. And, both of them are so important. And when it's not balanced, it's fluid. And, with our heart and our minds can even heal our hearts by, if our mind is strong, I feel like you can actually heal yourself in a sense. You can do
Mhm.
meditation, you can do a lot, but if your mind is not well, then you can't really create wellness through the other parts of your body, like mind, body, and spirit. So I went on my medication knowing that medication takes a full year, and then once you're on it and you feel good, you stay on it, you don't go off of it, and you're okay with that if it works for you. And I don't have my night terrors anymore um, due to trazodone.
Hmm.
And I don't have my anxiety. I do have, it's called subconscious panic attacks or subconscious anxiety attacks. And I could be so relaxed, literally at a spa on the beach, and I'd still have an overwhelming feeling out of nowhere. And that it does exist. It's like a subliminal anxiety, and it's something that we can't even control. It's just due to our body having some sort of a trauma, and our body just like, somewhat affected, from post-traumatic stress.
Mhm.
So, it's easier, those letters are easier said than experiencing. And when you do experience it, it's scary because you don't know, is it anxiety or is it heart failure? Because then you
Right.
start questioning it,
Yeah.
which is why you have either an Apple or a Fitbit that
Yeah.
you got one? I can't see it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, good. So exactly. So we can check that way and do our blood pressure and know, okay, listen to some piano, go on, YouTube, watch like, calm videos or like nature, and kind of go off into like another dream area, do some
Right.
stretching and breathing.
Yeah.
Um, Anxiety can turn into a disease if it's not treated. I believe you can condition your mind, and I believe to a point, but if your mind is having a hard time, then there's nothing wrong with conditioning that and then working with your mental health if it works. I mean, for me, I have accepted, I was for so long helping others with medication. So I've been aware of what it takes and how you have to gradually, you don't start at 100 milligrams like on Zoloft. You take a little piece, like even like maybe 5 milligrams for a week, and then wait a week, and then take 10 milligrams and wait another week. Sometimes it takes just to get up to 25 milligrams. It might take up to like 5 or 6 weeks, so by the time you're at a year, you're at 100 milligrams and you stay on that, you're golden.
Hmm. I've
You
always
won't
been leery and scared of doing it.
know. It's like, I know, so people are not aware of what's going to happen. And then they turn to like other things that are not working. And then they're still sad, they're still depressed, they're still worried, they still have fear. I have overcome cardiac death, coma, not having my son, losing my mom, who is my everything. My dad 18 months later, because she was his everything. And, you know, they have a love story. And tragically, with their daughter having maternal death from a preventable, you know, maternal mortality. So you know, there's guilt, there's so much layers of like all of this anger towards my gynecologist, you know, I'm angry, you know, at Cedars-Sinai, the hospital, you know, all the people that when I had every symptom in the sun, you know, and it takes down the whole family. I had to overcome a lot. So I knew I couldn't do it with myself, by myself, without proper medication. And that's okay. And I always said that to other people. So now I just applied it to myself. And where you start is with a psychologist. And there's on Virtua, you know, mental health, they have you can get one as we're talking now, like a Zoom. You know, you tell them it's not just for anxiety. You tell them that it's trauma that you've been through, and that you know that you need something non-addictive. You don't want to be on anything addictive, and you want something not necessarily to work in the moment, but long term. And in the moment, maybe take a little trazodone. I like take way too much. People are like, I can't believe you take that much. I could probably even take more. But I had a lot of trauma, and I used to wake up like holding my breath, and my heart would be pumping out of my chest, and I would be holding my breath while I was sleeping, which could have caused me to die because I was dreaming of me dying or causing that. So having mental health available to us, and it's 2022, we are so lucky. Could you imagine when we were in the 1400s and women had postpartum depression and they couldn't rely on that? That's why I was determined, even though my mom just died and my dad was suffering, I flew home. I flew from California to Washington, D.C., and I attended to to literally talk to those senators and make sure that postpartum depression bill was going to pass, with introducing peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, of course, because that just comes with the disease. It's like you can't have a baby and survive maternal mortality, death, and not have anything severe like a new name for postpartum depression.
Right.
Like on a whole other level.
Yeah.
So, you know, I get it. But I also believe that, you know, if you struggle with it daily, then help yourself. Be your own best friend. Don't try to come up with reasons why you shouldn't, because there's so many good reasons on why you should. Everybody around you will be happier. Let's just put it that way.
I do have a lot of stress. I homeschool. I have the 7 children. We run a business, you know, so it's a busy life here.
I hear it. And you got 7. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. I'm like, I run a nonprofit. I run a business. I got a 5-year-old. I'm trying. We do the best that we can. So it's okay to get a little help. And I'll tell you, I'm a lot better, like organized with my son, and feeling like I have more energy when I am, you know, having my full night's sleep, which is why I depend on my trazodone and my Zoloft, you know, which is, it took me a full year to really have it balance. It's not like a Tylenol. It's not Xanax. It is actually something that is balancing, nourishing your brain and making the serotonin, if there's too much, balancing it with the dopamine. Look them up. Know that when your mind, our brain is so important, just as important as our heart. So it's like, you can't forget about the brain. You got to help it, and that's okay. And people don't understand. They look at it like, oh, people are going to think I'm crazy. Well, no. Like, everything that you felt and feel are real, because
yeah,
it's real.
it's very real.
And I believe that if the brain is not treated as well and it's left untreated, it can turn into a disease. Who knows? Maybe it could be part of the dementia, which is why I think the BNP test can apply. If you research it, there's a correlation. And my father had dementia. My mother, she died of walking pneumonia. But, there's something to be said that when you are struggling with something, I think, whether it's your heart, whether it's your body telling you, whether it's your mind, that awareness is key. And there needs to be awareness also of not doing anything, just as much as what needs to be done. And if you're all good and you're 2 thumbs up and you're like, okay, I'm fine. My BNP is, whether it's a 25 or 47, it doesn't matter. As long as it's below 99, then you're good, But, and if you have it and it's above, let's say 130 or something like that, then get a magnesium drip, or, they lower it somehow, or they figure out to lessen the levels that are, of the number that's surrounding your heart. There are ways to do this. There's preventions. But if you're not aware, then that can turn into a disease. It's the same thing with any part of our body, I feel like. And so your mind is telling you, and, here we're telling, women, listen to your body, listen to your body. Well, your mind actually speaks too, and if it's sad, or it can't overcome something, or you're having struggle with anxiety, then it's okay, because we live in 2022 and we have fantastic medication that can literally rectify it. Very easy. There's a, just like there's a real practical solution to a mental problem. And it's not a mental problem. It's a chemical imbalance due to trauma.
Right. Definitely from the trauma. I think mine come on whenever I feel, just the palpitations, or my pulse will start racing. And then it's like a twofold thing. Then your pulse will race, because then your fight or flight kicks in. And that's, those are the type of things that I run into. Like day to day, it's not that bad. It's just whenever I have something like that come on me, then
what year did you have PPCM? What was the year?
Well, actually, 2 days ago was my 2-year anniversary. January 16th.
Anniversary. Wow. Okay. So it's 2 years.
So January 2019.
Okay.
Sorry, 2020. I had my baby in 19, and that's why I said it backwards.
You started
he was
young,
born in October, and then 2020 for January. So, yeah.
Okay. And is there any, other than, the fluttering sometimes in the heart, is there anything else physical?
Sometimes it feels like it stops, and then my pulse will go down to like in the 30s, and I do not know what's causing that. I've tried to, talk to the cardiologist about it before, and they don't seem too alarmed. So,
they don't seem too alarmed that your heart is possibly stopping?
Yeah, but they feel like the Apple Watches aren't reliable, and that's where I would see I would feel it first, then I would look and like, oh my goodness, what is going on, and um, they tell me not to pay too much attention to what the watch says.
Okay, that's fine. Have you, your heart was enlarged. Have you compared your heart today, what it was then
They said it's
in
went back to
size?
normal.
It did
Yeah.
go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And your EF
And
percent is above 50.
yes, and they said the mitral valve leak because the heart shrunk, it just went down to a mild leak. So I am very fortunate. I was not in cardiac arrest. I did not have to have any devices put on as of yet.
Yeah,
But
no, that's great. I had mine removed.
oh wow.
Yeah, it was bad. I was allergic to all the like most of the components, I think, in the device, and it was in my heart. And I'm like, okay, I was telling the doctors, listen, if you're allergic to something and you're shoving it in the heart, you have to have a patch test. So that was really bad. You're
Wow.
lucky and blessed for
That's
that.
terrible. Yeah.
That's what happened. And that's what did it when I got it removed. 4 months later was when my mom passed. It was just too much to bear. It was just too much.
Mm.
It was so much stress. This disease is devastating when it comes to our families. And how have your family have been affected? I mean, you have 7. Is the oldest most aware, and how is that working?
The older children, yes, were definitely more aware. They were scared I wasn't going to make it. We all were because I was sitting in my bed, 2 days after diagnosis. They let me go home because I had the baby that relied on my body to live at that point. But I was sitting in bed and I've never felt anything like this, and it was so scary. But it was like someone taking hot water and throwing it on my back, like a splashing, and there was nothing back there. I was sitting against my bed, so I really don't know what that was. But there was just times like that we weren't sure if I was going to pull through. Didn't know what to do. We're just trying to hang on. But the lifestyle changes for the family is now our family, and I'm sure you have to do this too, but the sodium, I mean, is practically cut out, and they've adapted to eating that way with me, which is very sweet of them.
Yes, exactly. It's so important. I have to do better at that. Sometimes around my period, I crave it. But yeah, it's definitely what we eat can either feed the disease or cure it.
I have a question for you about that. Is that ever going to change for me, or will it always be I need to watch my sodium? Like, I don't know. I'm just 2 years in. I don't go in very often. I don't talk to him very often. But
I mean, I would say anything, if you deprive yourself with anything, I think your body, like I think that I mean, I was always very careful. And every once in a while, like I love olives.
Mm.
I'm a big olive eater. And so I like to have it on my salads, or, like I'll know if I have it, for a week, a few days, I can't have it, I think that it's listening to your body again. If you're on like a diuretic, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're flushing it out. I mean, I don't think a little can hurt, but see what it does. If it raises your blood pressure, don't do it.
I have done that, and I do retain the water, and I can't see it on me because it's always in my chest. That's where I retain it.
Well, then, yeah. I mean, if you can feel it and it hurts, then don't do it. And if you feel like you're retaining the fluid, just stop, drink a lot more water, lemon water, and just flush it out. Like I'm constantly, I always have like a glass of water next to me. I'm always, drinking water
Mhm.
constantly, with lemons, a lot of times in it. And it's like, um, it's important for us to just, flush out everything anyway. But I don't think a little can hurt. I mean, it all depends though on how much fluid you're retaining. Just
Yeah. Well, I just
everything in
kind of wondered
balance.
if our bodies generally got better with it, if it was pretty much going to stay,
I
you know.
think mine did. Mine definitely has gotten better. I worked very hard. I was very, very swollen. I was 105 pounds around pregnancy. And by the time I had my times of death called 12 months later, I was almost 200 pounds.
Wow.
And I had over 50 pounds of fluid drained from me. And then when I woke up, the fluid was gone, but then somehow it came back again.
Mm.
So I was still retaining a lot of fluid, but I was also doing things at that point. I was swimming. I got into the aquatic aerobics with the elderly. I was like working out, and I was like, this is not happening to me. And I always was like a dancer, went to yoga, and I just, at that point I had a defibrillator in, and I was just like way overweight, but I wasn't. I was full of fluid. So
Mhm.
to get that fluid, I had to sweat it out. But with a pool, it's less impact on your back, your kidneys, which is something we need to always be prepared about. And, the feeling that we always will get behind our heart, our chest and back, that feeling. Do you get
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, I do.
It's because our heart sits on our back. And so what happens is that if we're, like our heart is like one big muscle.
Mhm.
So if the muscle is tight, it will feel tight. Do you feel that?
I do, but I didn't know that's what it was.
Yeah,
Like,
that's exactly what it is.
I do feel
So
that.
you you do. Okay.
Yes, I
So
do.
what your body's telling you is that you need to do you oop, I'm like stretching. You need to do more stretching. You need to like sit there and look up and like, and stretch and go back and forth. Like you need to like literally like stretch your body.
Huh.
And
Okay.
and when you stretch your body, it stretches, your heart muscle like around it. And then you'll like open up your air passages, I believe, and it's just so much better. So if you start to feel like you're feeling that tightness right here, and it's like right below like where you're in your chest area, but more sitting in your back,
Mhm.
that's basically you just need to just round your back out, do some downward dogs, hang there for a while. Lift up your arm and still hang, lift up your other arm and hang. Like go through some holding, stretching, and breathe through that stretch. When you
Okay.
find where it's tense and it pulls, that's when you want to hold that stretch and just breathe through it. And that will stretch the muscle and it won't feel like it's tense.
Okay. I will do that.
Yeah,
I didn't know if it was heart related or what it was, but it
it,
always gave me a double take. Like, what is that?
yeah, no,
So,
it's your heart. It's your heart. It's your heart is a big muscle, and if it's not, it's working overtime. I know that feeling. I mean, I was just doing some stretching before, this call, and I was just, trying to like I think from the medication, I just want to just take that deep, satisfying breath. But I do feel a little tense because I was sleeping a lot. Sometimes when you
mhm.
sleep a lot too, your
Okay.
body's curled up and, you need to, with ours, it's almost like it's not like a want, but it's a need. So we don't have that worry of that uncomfortable feeling.
Okay.
Plus, you need to work with it.
Yeah. Another thing I have often is wall pain, and they tell me not to be worried about it, but there are times that I can barely move. It hurts so bad. And I did not have that until I was diagnosed, after having heart failure.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have that
Yeah.
often.
It's almost like as if your circulation issue.
Okay. I definitely have that too. I didn't know if it was
Mhm.
medications or my heart, but I definitely have, and I still have this to this day. But right after diagnosis, it was really bad. The tingling in the feet and hands. I'm sure you hear that a lot, but
I get it.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I still have that to this day. It's just not as bad. I don't know if I've gotten used to it or if it's gotten lessened, but
Oh, well, my tingling, when I sleep on my right side, I think because with my neck, I don't know, there's something like right here from, I think, the scar tissue damage from them going into my heart, but my hand goes to sleep and it's really uncomfortable and everything kind of like goes a little numb. So I have to always sleep on my right. My son crawled in bed with me and he slept on my right, and I'm holding he slept on my left, so I had to go on the other side so I can hold him because I can't hold him like this. It's
yeah.
really it's a trip. Lately my hands have been curling.
Huh.
Like I curl and I'm like, ow, and I know that it's either, just drinking too much coffee, or it's a circulation issue. I mean, it's caused from, you know, PPCM,
Mhm.
that fluid is
Yeah.
is deadly.
Right. There is a lot of side effects from having peripartum cardiomyopathy. Um, You know how I had never heard of this until I was diagnosed, but after diagnosis, there was one other lady close here in our town that has it. I mean, her case is worse than mine, to my understanding, and um, but it was shocking to me that there was two in a small community. That means it's not as rare as I thought.
Oh, it's 1 out of 4 women.
Wow,
It's every
I
3
did not know that.
minutes. Yeah. And that's from what we know of. I mean, they say that cancer is every minute globally, every 3 minutes globally for PPCM. I don't know where they get these statistics from because, again, the diagnosis doesn't exist. Women have still been dying, and no one's ever heard of peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM.
Right. Hmm.
So how they even have this statistics is just flabbergasted. Like, I'm just
Right.
like, you got to call, like, literally bullshit when it's like right in front of your face. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like it does, if it doesn't make sense, and the other way makes a lot more sense, that they keep saying that it's rare. But if
Yeah.
it's so rare, then how come I'm booked up back to back with women wanting to come through and talk about this?
Right.
I'm literally booked up every day. I
Wow.
have like interviews back to back.
That's
So
wonderful
yeah,
that you're doing this
it's
though, and they're being able to speak and people hear their voice about it.
absolutely, it is so common. And when people say that it's not, well, we'll show them. It's
Hmm.
extremely common, more common than we can ever imagine. And the fact that it has been since 2020, since women are able to step up because of social media, because we're able to have Zoom calls and like have, these connections of group connections, and, you know, putting the pieces together of a disease that's been around since the beginning of time, when we have the best medical care in the United States of America, when we have the highest death rate, is a huge glitch
Hmm.
in communication, education, and support for humanity.
Right.
Because I can't even believe I'm sure your cardiologist is amazing and he diagnosed you and he saved you and he's helped you. But if there's only one test that can really help you, and maybe it might transfer, maybe it might cause other things in the future. We don't know. But if
Right.
there's the BNP that can determine, I'm just surprised a cardiologist not providing that. If you were like, wouldn't he want to know what your number is?
I would think so, but they told me just by looking at the echo, looking at it,
No.
that there's a difference between regular heart failure by looking at the wall. That's what they told me. Looking at the wall of the heart.
Your blood is different than looking at your heart. Your blood has other
Right.
things going on. I mean, if it can detect the elevation, why wouldn't they? It makes no sense to me. But I'm very curious to know what your BNP test is already. I mean, it's been
I
2
have to
years, for
message
the
you
love of
after I get it
God.
done.
Yes, please. I'm very curious to know, because I think that's like one of the main fight that we have, is why we need to make it mandatory. It's just, it makes no sense. If it's the only test, as they say, that we only have, it's not the only test. It's the only test that America provides. FDA
Okay.
won't approve the other ones yet. So we're waiting. Hopefully they will come through, the kits and the instruments, to the hospitals so they could be diagnosed. They do it in other countries. Why not ours?
Yeah, I
So
remember asking over and over, how do you know this is, peripartum cardiomyopathy and not regular heart failure? Because I kind of was like you, like, is there a way I can know for certain? But they're like,
yeah,
oh, the time frame, the way your heart looks. So
there is
anyway.
there, we need to get with the times. And if they're not educated, let's educate them. You find out from the BNP, the SFLT1, that's, the toxic fluid in your heart, cardio, with 1 meaning genetic, and the PIGF, which is the placental growth factor. The kits and instruments are available Canada, a lot of places out of the country. That would be the great diagnosis. That would be really, really wonderful for women in America to have available, because that's the issue. Women are not being diagnosed, therefore they're not being treated. They're sent home and they're having cardiac arrests in their bed with their baby next to them, like I did. So it's
Yeah.
with having the best doctors at the best hospital in Beverly Hills. I mean, it's just there. It makes absolutely no sense. There's only one thing that makes sense, is that they were unaware.
Mhm.
They didn't have PPCM awareness, and they didn't have the BNP test awareness. And there are so many preventions that it's beyond unacceptable at this point.
Yeah, I tell even just random strangers, I'll be talking on the phone with a customer service representative and I'll be like, hey, I bet you've never heard of this,
I
but
did the same
I'm going to tell
thing.
you about it.
Every representative, everyone,
Yes.
every
Yes.
single one. My husband's always like, who are you talking to? I'm like, the Apple rep, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Capital One, Discover card. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is, the pharmacist on the phone. I mean, it's
Yep.
like,
That's me.
I know. It's just the way it is. It changes
Yeah.
us. We want people and other women to have this awareness, because
I,
we want them to know the preventions and to know that they can self-advocate. It's just all a
right.
matter of, believing in yourself that something's not right. And if this doctor is not going to give you a BNP test, go to another doctor, go to your internal medicine doctor, go to anybody.
Do those have to be ordered?
They do have to be ordered, but you can order them through your family doctor even.
Okay. I'll talk
Just say,
to
I want to know
yeah.
my number. Say, what am I? Am I 25? Am I 47? Am I -2? Just as long as I'm not over 99 or 300, then I'm good, depending on what panel they give you. So
Okay.
It's just a matter of just wanting to know.
Well, maybe they did take it, but they didn't tell me, but I have not
Sure.
ever heard of a number for me. So, I mean, I don't want to throw them under the bus because that
No,
could be a possibility, you know, but
absolutely. Yeah, check your
I'll
results
definitely ask now.
and ask them, and yeah, message me, and I would definitely be curious to what maybe that was the diagnosis that got them to about the PPCM. He's a cardiologist. I can't imagine him not giving it to you. So maybe you're just unaware and just ask him. But
Yeah, there's a possibility for sure.
yeah. Well, anyway, it was so lovely like meeting you, and I look forward to seeing your journey through your recovery through this disease, and um message me when you have your information, and later down the road, if something happens, we can always do a continuation to this call if there's something that is there like a new resolution to this. Like, you never know where somebody can learn from an experience,
Right.
just if something pops up, oh, I learned this, and it'll be really good to let others know about it. We didn't know this before, but now we do.
Right.
So we'll just always, keep each other informed. And no, I mean, many blessings to you and your family and your support and your babies as they get older, and here's to living,
Mhm.
a long, healthy life and beating
I
this
thank you.
recovery.
I thank you and thank you for doing this. And again, for having me on here. I was one of them that was nervous to do this because I never had, but I appreciate your time and having grace for me.
Yeah, no, it was so lovely talking to you. I really enjoyed our interview, and I enjoyed, learning about your story, because I'm a one-time, mom. I can't have any more kids, which is fine, but it's interesting because I always wonder with women who've had more than one. It's like, I'm learning too. Like, I know that every pregnancy is different, but it's interesting to know if they come last, if they come, in the middle. Did you still have more afterwards? I mean, it's like, it's all very interesting of trying to put the puzzle pieces together. And I think that the study team is probably doing a great job, but I think survivors are the ones that really have not been listened to. And we're the ones that I think can really solve these, concepts and studies that need to be more attentive to,
Mhm.
into getting out there and educating young women and young families or young couples that want to start a family
Right.
together soon, and catch it earlier as opposed to at a life threat. So
Right.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Many blessings. And I look forward to speaking to you again.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com, or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Also, remember to join us every Monday and Friday for Mom Day Fitness. Have a great day.